Welcome to Study Time, a televised home learning program produced by Rwanda Education Board.
Hello students, welcome to TV Learning Programs. I'm Teacher Agre, teacher of entrepreneurship. Today I'm going to learn with Senior 1 students, and we are still on Unit 5, and the unit is Financial Awareness. Our lesson today, we are going to learn about the ways of managing debts and finance. And I expect you learners, at the end of the lesson, you can be able to explain the ways of managing debts or finance. But before I take you into today's lesson, I want us to first do these questions. The previous homework, we revise on these questions that I gave you in the previous lesson. The first question, given a saving goal of Rwandan francs 360,000 to finance a business that will start in 3 years' time, how much must you save per month to achieve the saving goal? Learners, do you remember very well what we learned in the previous lesson? We learned about the saving goal, the concept of a saving goal. And we said that a saving goal, it is the amount of money that you wish to accumulate at the end of the set saving period. How much do you want to accumulate at the end of the set saving period? Now, if your saving goal is 360, you have a goal. You have a saving goal. Your saving goal, you want to save 360,000 Rwandan francs in 3 years in order to start up a business. You want to save 360,000 in 3 years in order to start up a business. How much must you save per month to achieve the saving goal? How much will you save per month in order to achieve the saving goal of 360,000? You want to save this amount of money in 3 years in order to start up a business, 360. How much will you save each month? 1 year, you want to save this amount of money in three years. 1 year, we know 1 year is comprised or is composed of 12 months. 1 year is comprised of 12 months. And you want to save 360 in 3 years. You want to save 360 in 3 years. Now, in 3 years, in 3 years, it is composed of, how many months are in 3 years? They are 36 months in 3 years. And how do you get 36? You will get 3 times 12. Because if you get 3 times 12, you will get 36. There are 36 months in 3 years. Now, to get the amount of money that will be saved per month, the amount of money you will save per month, the amount of money saved per month, the amount of money saved that will be saved per month, to get the amount of money that will be saved per month, we shall get 360,000 divided by 36 months in order to get the amount of money that will be saved per month. Now we shall get 360,000 because in a month, in 3 years, there are 36 months in 3 years. Now we shall get 360 divided by 36. Learners, join me and we calculate this. Hope you have your calculators. If you get 36, if you get 360,000, we divide by 36 months, we shall get 10,000. Now, the amount of money that will be saved per month is 10,000 francs. The amount of money that will be saved per month is 10,000 Rwandan francs. That is the amount of money you will save per month in order to achieve the saving goal. Now, each month you will be saving 10,000, because if you get 10,000 times 36, you will get 360. Now, in order to achieve the saving goal of 360, you will have to save 10,000 Rwandan francs per month. Then the second question, what do you understand by the term borrowing? What is borrowing? That is the second question. That is the second question. The second question is borrowing. Borrowing. Do you remember, learners, what we learned in the previous lesson? We talked about borrowing, the concept of borrowing. And what is borrowing? Borrowing refers to taking, borrowing refers to taking and using money, refers to taking and using money, refers to taking and using money from a person, a bank, from a person, a bank, from a person or a bank, from a person or a bank, refers to the taking and using money from a person or a bank under an agreement, to pay it back, under an agreement to pay it back, under an agreement to pay it back. That is what we call borrowing. That is how we define borrowing. Because when you borrow money, you have to pay it back. You have a debt. You must pay back. Now, borrowing, the concept of borrowing, refers to the taking and using money from a person or a bank or from an organization with an agreement to pay it back. That is what we call borrowing. That is how we define the concept of borrowing. Then, this was number 2A, part A. Then part B, number 2, part B. Number 2, part B, give any 4 reasons for borrowing money from a bank. Give any 4 reasons for borrowing money from a bank. Why do we need to borrow? What could be the reasons of borrowing? Why should we borrow? One of the reasons of borrowing, why should we borrow? We have to give the reasons of borrowing. Reasons of borrowing. Reasons of borrowing. Reasons of borrowing. Why do we need to borrow? Why should we borrow? One of the reasons of borrowing, we borrow to cater for emergencies. We borrow, it is the first point, it is to cater for emergencies. To cater for emergencies. We borrow to cater for emergencies. We borrow to cater for emergencies. And what is an emergency? An emergency, those are things that are unexpected. Things that are unexpected. Like, if you fall sick, we don't expect to be sick. Now, emergencies, those are things that are unexpected, that we don't expect, that can occur, but we don't expect them. Now, we need to borrow in order to cater for emergencies that need immediate action. The second reason, why should we borrow? Why should we borrow? We borrow, the second reason why we borrow, it is to buy assets. To buy assets. To buy assets, such as land, house, etc. To buy assets such as land, house. We need to borrow because if you don't have money and you want to buy land, you can borrow in order to get the money to buy a land or to buy a house. Now we need to borrow in order to buy assets such as land and house. The third reason why we need to borrow, we borrow in order to finance education, to acquire education needs. We borrow in order to finance education. In order to finance education. In order to acquire education needs. We borrow in order to finance education. The next reason of borrowing, why we need to borrow, to start or expand a business. To start or expand a business. To start or expand a business. We need to borrow in order to start or expand a business. Remember, learners, what we learned in the previous lessons. We learned about the sources of business capital. Where can you get capital if you want to expand or start up a business? And one of the sources, we looked at borrowing. If you want to start up a business and you don't have money, you can borrow in order to get the capital so that you're able to start up a business. Now, one of the reasons of borrowing, it is to start or expand a business. The last reason of borrowing, it is to top up one's savings. Borrowing supplements on one's savings, to top up one's savings. We need to borrow in order to top up one's savings. It supplements on savings. For example, if I had saved 100,000, if I had saved 200,000 francs, and I want to buy a plot of land, I want to buy a plot of land that is costing 500,000 francs. Now, I'm remaining with 300. I need 300 in order to add on what I saved so that I can be able to buy that plot of land. Now, the 300,000, I can borrow it from a person or from a bank in order to add on the 200 that I saved so that I can be able to buy that plot of land. That is why we say that borrowing, it is to top up one's savings. After understanding these questions, we can look at the ways of managing debts. The ways of managing debts. Because I told you our lesson today, we shall talk about the ways of managing debts and managing finance. What is a debt? What is a debt? What is meant by a debt? What is a debt? A debt is any amount of money that is owed. A debt is any amount of money that is owed to a person. Why are we saying money? Because our unit, it is finance. And we said finance, when we're talking about finance, we focus on money. Because finance, those are financial resources, especially money. Now, a debt is any amount of money. A debt is any amount of money, any amount of money that is owed to a person, a company, or any other organization. That is how we define a debt. A debt is any amount of money that is owed to a person, a company, or any organization. If I borrow money from someone or from a person, I have a debt, and I will have to pay it. Because we said I've borrowed. If I borrow, I have a debt to pay. Now, a debt is any amount of money that is owed to a person, a company, or any other organization. Ways of managing debts. How can we manage debts? You have a debt, and you will have to pay it. How can you manage? How can we manage? How can you manage a debt? Ways of managing debts. The first way of managing a debt is avoid borrowing more money when you're still having debts. When you have a debt and you keep on borrowing, your debts will keep on accumulating. And at the end, you will fail to get money to pay those debts because you have more debts to pay. Now, in order to manage debts, it is better to pay the previous debts. After paying the previous debts, then you borrow. But if you keep on borrowing and you still have debts, you will fail to pay those debts because you will have more debts to pay. The second way of managing a debt, avoid buying something expensive while still in debts. Avoid buying something expensive while still in debts. Because if you have a debt and you keep on buying things that are expensive, because when you buy something that is expensive, you're spending more money. You will not be able to save so that you're able to pay a debt. Now, in order to manage a debt, it is to avoid buying things that are expensive so that you're able to minimize, so that you're able to save and pay a debt. The third way of managing a debt is paying the debt on time to avoid extra charges. But now this will depend on the borrower and the lender. If the borrower and the lender agreed on the time when the debt is supposed to be paid, so that in case you don't pay on time, there will be extra charges. Now, to avoid these extra charges, you have to pay on time. That is a way of managing debt. Because when you don't pay on time, there are extra costs that you will have to pay. Now, one of the ways of managing debts, it is paying the debt on time to avoid extra charges. The next way of managing debts is through making a budget in order to plan for your expenses. What is a budget? A budget is a financial plan showing the incomes and the expenses. When you budget, you will spend on things that are necessary. And when you make a budget, you will be able to save in order to pay a debt. You will know how to manage you will know how to manage your money so that you're able to pay a debt. Because you will spend on things that are necessary. Things that are not necessary, you will leave them so that you're able to save and be able to pay a debt. The last reason of managing a debt is through investing in productive activities. When you borrow money and invest in a productive business, in a business that will help you to generate profits, when you invest in a productive business and you're able to make profits, those profits will help you in paying a debt. Instead of investing that money in things that are non-productive. When you borrow money and invest in things that are non-productive, you will fail to pay a debt because you may not be able to generate income to pay those debts. When you borrow, it is better to invest in productive activities that help you to generate income so that you're able to pay a debt. Now, after understanding the ways of managing debts, there are ways of managing finance. How can you manage finance? Learners of Senior 1, how can you manage your finance? You as a student, how can you manage your own finance? Ways of managing finance. First of all, what is management? To manage. What is to manage? Manage is a way of handling or controlling something. Management. Management. The word management means the way how something is handled or controlled. Management is the way how something, the way how something is controlled, is handled or controlled. That is management. The way how something is handled or controlled. Now, how can you manage your finance? How do we manage finance? Ways of managing finance. One of the ways of managing finance It is reducing on quantity, reducing quantity of something being used. Reducing quantity of something being used. An example, because when you reduce on the quantity, you will minimize your expenses and you will be able to save. For example, if I have been buying 3 kilograms, I've been consuming 3 kilograms of meat. I've been consuming the consumption. I've been consuming 3 kilograms of meat in a week. I've been consuming 3 kilograms of meat in a week. In a week. That is what I consume. And the cost of 1 kilogram of meat, the cost, 1 kilogram of meat, the price of 1 kilogram, let's assume the price of 1 kilogram of meat, the cost is 3,000 francs. They are selling it 3,000 francs. Now, if I'm consuming 3 kilograms of meat in a week, and 1 kilogram of meat is 3,000, meaning I will spend 9,000. Per week, I spend 9,000 francs. Now, if I want to manage my finance, I've seen that I'm spending more money on meat. I can reduce on the quantity of meat. If I've been consuming 1 kilogram, if I've been consuming 3 kilograms of meat, I may decide and buy 1 kilogram. I consume 1 kilogram in a week. And if I consume 1 kilogram in a week, I will spend 3,000. Now, the 6,000 will be saved. This 6,000 will be saved. I'm trying to manage finance by reducing expenses. You're reducing on the quantity of something being used. The next way of managing finance is reusing items that are still in good condition rather than throwing them away or buying new ones. An example, reusing items. If I go to the market to buy some commodities and they pack those commodities in an envelope or in a sack, I may decide to keep that envelope safely so that next time when I go to the market, instead of buying another envelope, I use the other envelope that I kept in order to save. Because you may reach at the market, you buy another envelope. Now, if you reuse the items that are still in good condition, like envelopes, instead of buying other new envelopes, that amount of money you can save it by reusing those items that are still in good condition. The third way of managing finance is repairing things that may be torn or broken. Repairing things that may be torn or broken. An example, if I have a shirt or a blouse, that is torn, now instead of buying a new one, instead of buying a new shirt, I can take it to the tailor to be mended or to be repaired so that I'm able to save. Because you may find a new shirt, they are selling it 10,000, and repairing the torn one, you're going to spend either 500. You would have saved instead of buying a new one. Now, repairing things that may be torn or broken, it is a way of managing finance. The next way of managing finance is proper record keeping. Keeping records. And when you keep records, you're able to track your expenses. You make a follow-up. When you record, you write down what you're spending. How much do you spend daily? Now, when you're recording, you're able to track your expenses. Now, this will help you to know how much you're spending. If you see that you're spending more money, you can reduce on your expenses so that you're able to manage finance. Now, recording helps to manage finance by writing down the expenses, how much money you're spending, so that you can track your expenses. If you find that you're spending more, you may try to reduce your expenses. Because it will be difficult to know how much you spend if you're not recording. Now, to know how much you spend, you have to record so that if you're spending more, you reduce your expenses so that you're able to manage finance. The last way of managing finance is separating personal finances from business finance. How can a business manage finance? Now, through separating personal finances from business finances, because if you don't separate personal finances from business finances, you may end up using business finance to facilitate your personal activities. You're not managing well the business finance. Now, it is better to separate personal finance from business finance so that you can manage well the finances of the business. Before I end the lesson, learners of Senior 1, I want to leave you with the homework. And it is one question. I want to leave you with the assignment, and it is one question. The question is, as you're writing down the question, I can read through the question. The question is, explain any 5 ways of managing debts. Explain any 5 ways of managing debts. If you have a debt, how can you manage a debt? And I know very well, learners, you can be able to answer that question. Ways of managing debts. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being attentive. We meet next time. Thank you.